Welcome back to the show. As you know, if you're reading on Substack, it is business planning season for me, which means we have guest spots for you because we are knee deep in a bucket load of work setting up 2027, making big decisions, and my brain space just doesn't have enough to do it all. So we have a wonderful guest, Mr. Joel Diaz, Director of Operations out of Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Great conversation. Always such a pleasure to talk with Joel. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. Joel Diaz. Joel Diaz. Hello,
Hello,
my friend.
hello, hello.
Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been a while for listeners who don't, or new listeners, or listeners who weren't listening when we first kicked this off. I think, as the saying goes, Joel is an old friend of the show. Isn't that what people say?
I think so. I think so.
Okay, so for listeners who may not know your lore, Joel, give people a sense of who you are and what you do and where you're
Well,
located.
my name is Joel Diaz, and I'm out of the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, which consists of Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. I work for Remax Real Estate. I am the Director of Operations, which means I just make sure everything flows pretty smoothly between two offices. We have two offices and in our operations, so that's what I do. I work with our marketing department. I work with our leadership. I'm part of the leadership team, and I work with agents individually.
How many agents total between the two offices? I forget.
Oh, something like 100.
Yeah, so it's sizable. We're not talking 5 people.
Right, right, yeah, no, no. I don't know if I found a job if it was 5 people.
So, as Joel, you will know, Joel and I talk often. We certainly don't reserve our conversations just for a podcast. But,
Yes.
Joel, you understand I am knee deep in business planning, throwing ideas around, making decisions. And you and I were talking about agents and the work we're doing and the consolidation and all the things. And, with 100 agents, and well, with 100-ish agents, you see a very wide swath of agents, how they work, how they think, how they decide, uh, what they choose to execute or not. And since this is home of the identity ops method, I thought it would be really nice to hear from somebody who sees a wide variety of work styles, business models. I was really curious, and this is the overarching theme of the show today is, what do you see agents do that might be the biggest benefit or the biggest detriment to themselves, as it pertains to business planning and making decisions in their business? What is the top thing, and you can answer this however you want, Joel, or the top thing that agents maybe do or don't do? Do you have a set, maybe just, give me your ideas on that.
Yeah, and backtrack a little bit. You were talking about how many agents we have, and we have a saying here that as far as the support staff here, uh, we have 100 different companies that we support,
Mm.
not just the brokerage. Uh, and that's mostly because of how we operate. We do try to really get the agents to run the business the way they want to, not as long as they stay within the lane, the yellow lane, the yellow markers on the lane, but to be who they want to be and be successful in what they term as successful. So I think, to answer your question, I think what I see going great is the same thing what I see not going great, which is either having clarity or not having clarity. I think is what it comes down to. So there's no one size fits all, and we here definitely don't try to do that. But it's a little bit difficult for those who don't have clarity to implement or execute or deliver the house, how they do business, how they do marketing, and things like that. That's what I would say.
Yep. We are in, as they say, aggressive agreement. And I guess my terminology for that, gosh, this might be a very boring podcast if we just agree with each other the whole time, Joel. But um,
Well, we might not agree on how it gets done,
oh,
but
true, true, true. We're going to get into it. But when
uh,
I hear you say clarity,
mhm,
to me, that is understanding one very basic concept first, and that is what kind of here are the available business models for you
mhm,
to run in this industry. Which of these models are you actually running?
mhm.
Right? Because I think that's going to dictate the how.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think there was I forgot who wrote the book. It's Who Not How or How Not Who or something like that. I forgot how it goes, but
Mhm.
it's interesting because uh, I think the focus on I think the focus that I see happening, especially in brokerage, is they focus on the why. And I try to not care about the why. 'Cause I
Mr.
think
Operations.
yeah, so I think the why is something that the agent or whoever is whatever reason for but I don't care about the why because I don't think clients and I definitely don't buy into the why. That's yours. That's you to have. It's the how you deliver, how you present yourself, how you do things. That's probably more my my focus. So when especially for recruiting, if I'm in a recruiting meeting, that's what I'm listening for. I don't care why you got in this business. I don't necessarily need to sit down with an agent and say, well, you got to come up with your why. I always used to hate that when I used to get put through that, but I care more about the how. Like, well, okay, well, you got your why, but how are you delivering? How are you doing things? How are you focused? How is your clarity? And that's where I see, especially when we're in the recruiting meeting, that's where I see the things crumble. Because
Mm.
I don't think that's where I think clarity comes in because
Mhm.
if they're not clear, then they're stumbling and explaining to me their
Do you
how.
have any examples of what you see them not be clear on specifically? Have any examples for listeners?
Well, for example, if I'm in a recruiting meeting and I used to think, you know, we had this conversation earlier, but I think it used to be when you recruit, it was like here, we have the best tools. Okay, we have, you'll get a website and you get a CRM and you get this and that, and everybody goes through a recruitment and they say, well, yeah, my company has that, my company has that, my company has that. Or where I think I try to get the clarity in the how is, well, how are you using it? Like, give me an example of how you're using that in your business right now. I'm interested in, bettering like, how are you using it? And that's when you see the go, oh, I don't use that really. I don't know how to use it. I don't have time to use it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you have it, you don't use it. So for me, that's where I try to dig in and then find out why. Well, why aren't you using it? Okay, so you have it. I'll just use, for example, a CRM.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're provided one. Okay. And I don't care if you're provided one or you have your own. I'm just looking to find out, are you using one? Like how are you, because I think that's an indication of how you run your business, right? So, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. How are you running are you running your business off a post-it note? Um,
Is
your
that
cell
really a business though, Joel? Is that really a business though?
I mean, you and I know that answer, but or are you running it off your cell phone or, and then usually when I get that and I'm like, "Oh, well, then explain that to me. So how do you stay in touch with those on your Post-it note? Like, what is your process?" And as you start and you just see how uncomfortable they are when they're answering because they know, yeah, you told me you had all these great tools, but they're not using it. So I think for me, that's the kind and I'm not well, if you had guidance or if you had like, what would you do with that if you had that? So let's talk about that. And then we have a conversation. In my office, we're very big on having a CRM. I
Mhm.
have agents who have multiple CRMs. I have some that have two because for two different reasons, two different purposes. And then I have some that, I would say the majority of people walking miles probably don't have any at all. And then we train and we push and we do that. But we have the support staff to help manage that and make that happen to organize. But not everyone does. So that's where
Mm.
I think we're and especially I mean, I don't want to put anybody down or anything, but especially those who just came in from the COVID eras who
Mhm.
who now realizing, oh, I do need to streamline, I do need to implement, I do need to because this isn't as easy as I thought it was when I first joined.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you feel we were as you mentioned, we were discussing this a little earlier. I feel like I see two most because what we're asking people to do, or when you hold the mirror up for them, Joel, and you say, okay, explain a little bit more about why you want that or how you're using it. And you get the sort of the wheels coming off the bus. Do you find that the agents are lacking the ability to make a decision because they don't have enough information? Or do you feel like they're scared and it's more of a fear-based, I don't want to change anything? Like, do you think the resistance that, or do you even get resistance from people when you train them that way?
Don't necessarily think I get resistance. I might get resistance on one or two aspects of it, and we work through that. I I see where agents struggle mostly is in the implementation. So I think they want it, and if they could just turn the computer and it was just there, I think they, want. But it's the hard work, it's the behind the scenes of
Mhm.
it that like, "Oh, I really don't have time for that," or "I really don't know how to do it, so I'm going to procrastinate," because I can never say that, like,
Mhm.
in doing that, and that's where I had found the struggle mostly. They want, but they don't even know what step 1 is. For example, I'll give you an example. If and I know we talked a word about consistency, but I've worked with an agent who had her people in 14 separate spreadsheets. 14. And the reason I asked why, like what? And it was because they didn't even know how to start a new one or they couldn't find it. So let's just start a new one. And it well, for whatever reason, it just at 14. So we had to take all 14 and work on that to give one and said, don't ever create another spreadsheet in your life again. So
Yeah.
I think it's just how to use or how to implement, I think is usually the problem.
You know what? I will back it up one step maybe and ask you, because I'm genuinely curious about about how how agents have been trained up until now and how agents might be trained for the future. And I think a lot of this is given lip service like run a business, articulate your value, differentiate. But when you get to the how inside of the brokerage, that starts to fall apart in on both sides of the coin. And nobody wants to slow down long enough to dig into a 14-page spreadsheet, sort, qualify, learn something new, how not to start a new spreadsheet and how to nobody seems to want to slow down long enough, but if you don't, I really don't understand how you're building blocks of a business.
You
Would
moving.
you agree with that?
Oh,
Or
yeah, definitely. I think, you do hear a lot of, articulate your value and
Ugh,
just have more customer relation. And at a certain point, I get it because, you're trying to motivate. And so you say those things and the agents listen to them and they're like, yes, I need to do that. What I think is missing that is the how to do that. And I think the how is going to be different for every single person. And that's where I think in brokerages they fail it.
and I understand why, right? Because if uh, it has to be clay. Like when you're inside IO, when you're inside Notion, that's the whole point of me building it there was so that there's a framework and you can use it as it is, but you can also, because everybody's brain works differently.
Right.
I want to see it by date. I want to see it by alpha. I want it alphabetized. I want to, there's no way a brokerage could possibly meet the bar of what everybody wants when you're talking about over 100 people.
Okay.
You've got a Joel maybe helping them implement one at a time specifically, but if you don't have a Joel in team, I think that's an impossible task, number one. But I also disagree with the idea of if you are telling your agents that and you don't have the how behind you, or you don't have the time to do the how, you shouldn't be asking that of them because you're setting them up for failure. And I get real touchy when people start criticizing agents because I am one and I've been through it. Like I've sat through the cheerleading and yeah, you should do this and you should do that and you should do okay, show me how. That's why I was so happy when I met you, Joel. I was like, "Ooh, there's somebody doing the how."
Yeah.
That's exciting. And you and I love to talk about the how because part of this industry is very creative in marketing. Well, yeah, you got to keep that sucker rolling. But at the same time, you have to have a level of excellence in operations and execution and consistency. That is a tall bar to clear after just passing a test and gaining a license and showing up at a firm where everybody's just like, go build relationships.
Yeah.
Whoa,
And
whoa,
I think
whoa.
and there lies the problem because I think there are two types of different agents. I mean, there's multiple types of agents, but I think
Yeah.
you have the ones that are brand new who when you say articulate your value, well, they don't even know what that is yet because they haven't done anything, right?
They couldn't possibly, right?
So also, it's also more difficult, especially, and in my office, we don't necessarily take brand new agents on very
Right.
often. Like we are very selective.
Because you're clear. You
Yes.
have clarity.
We have to, we've done it and we've got burned and they don't last long, but it's very rare that we do. And the ones sometimes it works out great. We've had people that we took on brand new who were
Mhm.
killing it. And but as our philosophy or as who we are, that's not what we normally do because there lies, when you talk about data, they don't even have one. And so we're now having to go like dig deep to create one, right? So it's a different field. We mostly cater to agents who've been in the business for a while, who know the contracts, know anything, who sort of have a business but needs to fine tune it, streamline it, automate it, they have an idea. They're not starting out fresh, so they understand the language. I think
Mhm,
new agents do not understand the language yet.
mhm.
So there lies that I think, but I think the like you said is if you're teaching it and you don't have the support for it, that's where I think the frustration. That's where I see breakdown because then it falls on the agent in my mind to implement it themselves. And I think that's where the consistency falls apart because they want to and they either can't, get too busy, don't know how, they don't even know how to turn on a computer, or they don't know how to work with these tools or even know why. That's the other one. Why they should use these tools.
Mhm. Yeah, like, what's the definition of success?
Right.
Why are we using this tool in the first place? What do we
So
want it to
so
do?
when I teach, when I do a training class, I always start off telling my agents, like, I'm teaching you the application. I'm not teaching you how to use it or how to work it. I'm teaching you the application. I'm teaching you if you wanted to use this, this is the results that you can count on or your results you can get if you use it. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to, but my job is to let you know what's available to you. But I'm going to teach you, I'm not going to go like and click here and start here and push it. I'm going to show you if you had it set up this way, this is how it would work. Because again, it's different for everybody. Like you said, people might want it sorted by alphabetical order. Some might
Yeah,
people want, and I get that. Even with our CRM, I'll get a call and I'm like, why doesn't it do? Just we'll click this button, it'll do it that way. Oh, okay, because it's everybody's different. So you
yeah.
have to have a default, but you have to know what you want. And I don't think you really sometimes know some of that till you start getting in the weeds of it.
Agreed.
Yeah, and be like,
100%.
"Oh, I would really wish this would work this way." Well, okay, then let's, instead of getting I always tell them, "Instead of getting frustrated, just come ask me."
Right,
Yeah, and I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
right.
I just did that the other day." "Oh, yeah, just flip this button, switch over here, it'll work perfectly that way for you." Boom. But
Alright, so I wanna switch gears a little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
because it's a nice segue right
mhm,
into, like, what we're talking about. The whole reason you're able to do that is because you were very clear on the agent you are recruiting,
right.
and your job has now shifted, if I'm not mistaken, a little more focused on, "Okay, we're getting referrals. Agents are coming to us. Our game is about retention now
Mhm,
and refining your retention playbook, even if it steals from, I guess it depends for the brokerages. Like, okay, who are you for? Who are you equipped truly to serve as agents? Is
yeah.
that the new leaf that we're turning into, Joel? What do you think about that?
It's funny you said that because in our leadership meeting yesterday, we had that conversation. I think what you're seeing out there right now with all the consolidations, with all the mergers, I think it's very much harder for brokerages to recruit because the new product is certainty, and people are not certain with what's happening. They don't know who's in charge. They don't know what's changing. They don't know any of that. And I don't think even brokers who are involved in that even know that themselves at this time. Right.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay. Till the writing's done and everything. So the conversation we had in yesterday's huddle or leadership meeting we had was that right now, and it's funny because it was always part of my job. Right now, the focus should really not necessarily be in the recruiting, but in the retention. And so we and I felt like we've always done a great job in retention in our office. Like we have always used to say, you come join us. The only way you leave is you had to move, your spouse got a new job, or you died.
You get
That was
carried out.
yeah. So it was we always joked about that. But however, the danger is in complacency, right? And so we had
Mm.
a conversation yesterday, and let's take let's just take a look in how we're doing retention once again, and making sure that we are focusing that as our A game and continue to do that. And if there's any ways, just because we've done things this way, you know, could there be something better or a certain way of doing something better? So I think right now retention is the name of the game because there's I think it's gonna be harder to recruit with what's going on. I think it's gonna
Mm.
be very hard. And so because people don't know what changes are coming down the pike, and that's unfortunately including the broker. Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't think so retention's gonna be the name. So what are we doing that, as I like to say, have agents be your advocates? Um, I
Mhm.
think that is, for us, that's always been our, I don't want to say bread and butter, but that's what it's
Mhm.
always been. Are your agents advocating you, or are they
Mhm.
frustrated? And
Hmm.
so, you know, um, so
Don't you think the bar is being raised across the board
it
for
should
both?
it should be.
Like, for everyone, I will say, like, AI has collapsed the commoditization or the automation piece of this. It's really, you know, if you could if you in the past, you skated on, um well, I shouldn't say skate. It's hard business no matter how you do it, but I think AI's, you know, some of people's proposition to agents or their value proposition to agents will need to change just as an agent's proposition to a customer will have to evolve and sort of come up a little bit. Um, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I the bar has to come up. It's just a matter who's setting the bar. I think because I
I
think
think we are. I kinda think the agents are gonna here's my hope. Can I just can
that
Oh, oh, Joel, I don't know if we have enough time for this. My hope is that agent behavior starts to drive some very significant trends throughout the industry. Um, I really hope agents have a sense of what they believe is right, how this industry should be run and practiced, and I hope they let their opinions be known. And I hope we can have a very respectful and productive debate where and when appropriate.
yeah,
I will look how succinctly I did that. I did not go off on a tangent, Joel. Aren't you proud?
I'm proud. I just
Thank you.
I I don't even know how to word this. I that is the hope. That
It
is the
is.
I just feel there's very few who would take
Okay,
them
but
on.
we're on a podcast, Joel. So this is the beautiful thing about this is that
Mm,
we can say, "Hey, you know, I would love to see." I always respect and admire people who do give their opinion, even if it's different from mine. I am completely open to respectful debate, but I think there is a moment in time we are experiencing here, and how the public perceives us is a thing.
right.
So, how you think agents are consulting and leading clients, this is a much bigger. We cannot uncork this jar right now, but my hope is if agents are listening, you have a voice, you have an opinion, you should let it be known because the industry is being reshaped all around you. And unless you're comfortable with everybody else just making the decisions
No,
for you.
I agree, but I think even though I agree with what you're saying, I do think it's the brokerage that has to, encourage that.
Yes. Oh, 100% yes.
So,
Yeah, you're
you know
right.
so,
You're right.
um, take, for example, the conversation we had about recruiting and retention. One of the things that we decided to do was, create different, and we've done this in the past, we've created different executive committees based on certain topics. So it's not the same people all the time. It's
Mhm,
people so for example, in talking about recruiting and retention,
mhm,
we're going to create an executive meeting from both offices to have that kind of conversation where agents, yeah, because we can think, oh, you know what, you know, if I ring the bell and say, hey, Sandy McMaster just sold another one, I'm just, and the agent might go, oh, well, actually, I got a perfect example of that.
mm.
We have a program called, oh boy, we have a program. I have to choose my words carefully here. I know
Yes, understood.
we have a program that sort of encourages agents, and if they got to a certain level in that program based off of what they were doing, we would recognize that, and their sort of reward for it, um, let's just say for some, it kind of fell flat because that's not who they were, or that's not how they wanted, um, to run their business. So it wasn't utilized a lot. And I, I always had an issue with it, but I always lost out on that conversation. Okay. So, and like when I brought up in leadership, it was just sort of like, no, 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 no. And it wasn't until I had conversations with certain agents that I found that they felt the same way.
Mm,
So this was brought up in our leadership, and that voice finally got heard. And now everybody wants to participate because their reward is based off of who they are and how they want to use that, not necessarily here it is. So that's an example of agents sort of speaking out. And so we decided to come up with a community because here we might think what we're doing is great. We're going to pat ourselves on the back. We're doing that,
yeah.
but if it doesn't speak to the agent and how they're running their business, I think it can backfire you, you know. And so I know for the retention recruiting, we decided just to have a conversation, create a little committee, get people from all different walks of life. So it's not like
Mhm,
our top producers, it's not our, it's
mhm,
a mixture of people in there that we felt could contribute to the conversation, have
mhm,
different types of businesses. Um, and, uh, and in fact, some of our top producers are not even in that committee.
mhm.
Um, so just so that we can hear as a leadership if there's any improvements or any. So I think I agree the agent has to, but I think the brokerage has to encourage it because I think agents sometimes are scared to say what they want to say because of
Yeah.
how they're viewed or treated. And so you have to have um, that space for them to be able to do that. And I think when you do that, then it raises the bar. I think it does because then it's not leadership, your peers, were involved in this and and not only that too, because if a decision is made, um, the agents will talk among themselves. And if you have
Yeah.
that buy-in from the agents that are, they'll be, well, we decided that because of this, or we felt this. And it's not just leadership making that decision. It was The collaboration, as we like to use in our office, is what made that decision or implemented.
And I
Or
think, let's it's really hard for everyone right now being in an uncertain the ground is shifting one way or another, but you can do when you are as clear as your leadership team is about who their agent is and is not, then you can build a level of certainty in there. I think that was like the first step. Like I always think it's like, wait a minute, let's rewind. Let's take one step back to the macro and be like, okay, well, what kind of office are we? Okay, great. Everybody's going to be I don't mean to sound snarky, but let's just pretend in the new world, in the new era, everybody's part of some huge conglomerate. Okay, great. You still have an office. You still have an office leader, broker, who is really custom designed for X, Y, or Z. You're still, you can still build certainty into the system if you know who you're for, if you know what you're designing for. And I think the same goes for agents. And we got to wrap this up, Joel, because I got a hard stop today. But the same can go for the agents if you just ask yourself one question. Maybe I'll throw this to you next, Joel. But if I wanted one takeaway from this podcast for agents, I'll speak to the agents. Maybe you can speak to the brokers. Uh, Agents, are you running a business that is purely a transactional one? Or are you trying to build a brand? I will dumb it down to two choices today because I'm just trying to, give the clarity that we started at the top with. If you want clarity, understand if you are just running a numbers game or you're trying to build a brand. Those are two wildly different business plans. Those are two wildly different definitions of success. So if you can just have that answer, and there is no wrong answer, by the way, go ham, be successful however you want to be successful. But the first decision that you have to make is a decision about what you're trying to build and what does success mean. So that's for the agent side of it. Joel, if you were giving broker or broker leaders or educators, what's maybe one question they should ask themselves?
they clear themselves and
Yeah.
who won in their office? Are they clear? Um, I would we did I would take a hard look at the agents you have and go deep. Why do you have them? How did they come to your office? Who brought them in? And grade them. Are they and then you'll learn the culture that you have, I think, and at that point, you're gonna know what kind of brokerage you have. And
But
ask.
and, but and then
Oh,
if the game is retention, serving that population well.
well, and I think when you do that, when you go through your people, ask yourself, "Do I want another one of this? Do I want another Sandy?
No.
Do I want another Joel?" Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I think
Yeah.
because I think then you're gonna learn what type of office you have, what kind of culture
Mhm.
you have, because you have a culture no matter what. It could be a
Or
good
what
culture.
services to offer and pay for, what services might you need, what are you delinquent in, what are you not offering, what can you get rid of and stop paying for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think for brokerages is having that clarity. And for like we did that years later, um but you'll learn what you have and what's your strength and where's your weakness, and then you go with that. If you can fix the weakness, great. I always, think if something is working, do more of that. Where I think sometimes things are working and they go, it works, and they stop doing it. Yeah,
Joel, that is an excellent place to cap this. Hey, listeners, if you're doing something and it's working and it feels great, keep doing that.
do
And if
more of
it's
it.
not working and it doesn't feel great, stop doing that.
Stop doing it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Joel, my friend, thank you for coming back on the podcast.
Well, anytime. This was fun. I always
Yeah, we'll bring you back again, of course, because I think with all the shifts and changes and such, there is going to be much we can talk about. Thank you so much, my friends.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Lis- yes, our pleasure. Listeners, we will be back next week.